Today I'm going to tell my story from in front of my chicken coop because I just learned a huge lesson from my chickens and my experience with my chickens that has everything to do with the live your medicine, find your unique voice story. Here it goes. I have had up to 4 chickens, currently have 2. I started the journey with chickens back in April with 2 3-month-olds. And within a month, I had one suddenly go into paralysis and die within 4 days. And then 2 months later, had another chicken slowly die over a period of 3 to 4 weeks of progressive paralysis. So I currently have 2, and I've gone through cycles of grief and not knowing and aloneness about this thing called chicken raising, which I really had no idea what it entailed until I started, which is of course the case with everything. And now, so in the last 2 weeks, I've been dealing with one of my chickens suddenly losing a ton of feathers and just not looking great at all. Acting pretty normally, but just totally ugly looking because patches of feathers missing and everything. And I just thought, this is some kind of infestation, something that I'm doing wrong, something I need to research. And so it led to a bunch of changes, one of which was moving the coop off of its concrete base, which we were told to do because of the possibility of raccoons digging under the coop, and moving it out here in the middle of the yard. And that's Eleanor, who's the one I'm talking about. And allowing them to actually free roam through our yard. And I'm going to stand up. It's been this, so I had this storyline in my head about something being wrong. And I was just bracing myself for another loss based on my past experience. And I had gotten information from different sources, online communities, the place where I bought the chickens, and different people who'd had chickens. And it was basically like, yep, they die. That's just what happens. You have to get used to it. And then today, we went to the farmer's market, our Half Moon Bay farmer's market, where we are very lucky to be surrounded by a lot of people who still live very close to the earth, growing their own food, raising their own chickens, having their own honeybee hives and making things out of beeswax, etc. And these are not the real deal. They're not industrial farmers. They're families that do this out of passion or tradition or both. And they share it with the community. And so I was walking through the market, and of course it's nearing the holidays right now, and I happened upon the beeswax, the Beasy Brothers Beeswax company, candle company, which is just basically a family in Moss Beach, California. And she had for sale these beeswax ornaments, and I'm going to show one. This is a chicken made out of beeswax, and it's an ornament that you can hang on your tree or around. It smells amazing. If you've never smelled actual beeswax from real honeybees in its unadulterated form, it's heavenly. It's amazing. So I was like loving her chickens, and I'd never met her before because she usually sells her products through another bee keeper and doesn't show up herself usually. But because of the holidays, she had her whole setup. Her name's Leslie. So I started talking to her and asking her if she had chickens because I saw this. And she said, "Do you have chickens?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "How many?" And I said, "2." And she laughed and told me that she has 31 in her backyard in Moss Beach. all different varieties. She has like 6 different colored eggs that come from them. So we started talking. She was just so passionate, so enthusiastic, and I was sort of sheepishly holding this feeling of shame at being not that good of a chicken mother because I had lost 2 out of 4, and there was obviously something I was missing, and I was also kind of not wanting to tell her that I had this situation happening right now with another one with the feathers coming out. But she was so in love with chickens. It was like it just came out of me that I was like, well, I told her the entire story that I just shared with you of all my chickens. And she's like, okay, yeah, so that one's molting. That happens once a year. She's talking about losing their feathers. I'm like, but she looks terrible. She's like, yep, they're going to look terrible, and it'll take a few weeks for them to grow back. Okay. And then for the other ones, I have this kit of all these antibiotics that if I see something funny happening with one, like, you know, if their poop looks weird or they're acting funny, then I put the antibiotics right in their water right away, and I treat the whole flock, and then I don't eat their eggs, because after you treat them with antibiotics, you can't eat the eggs for 10 days. So I had heard before that if you treat them with antibiotics, you can't eat their eggs forever. And I was like, well, that's pointless for me to have a chicken that's I'm not going to be able to eat the eggs of, so I'm not going to do that. So she says for the 10 days, she takes their eggs, boils them, cuts them up, and feeds them back to the chickens. Maybe that's too much information for those of you who don't want to know this. But, and then after the 10 days, it's fine. She was so practical and so like, yep, been there, done that, yep. And it was like, and there was not a problem. It was not this story of tragedy. So here's the lesson that immediately opened up for me in that conversation. It was that I was suffering alone because of my story of shame about not being good enough at doing this thing called chicken mothering. And that what she offered me in that conversation today was community. It was only the 2 of us, but it was community. It was, yes, I have been there. This is how I've dealt with it, and there's not a problem. And sometimes it happens, but hey, it's fun. And here's what you can do. And I'm happy, enjoying this process of growing chickens. And you can too, and I hope you do, and you should get more. And so it went from this, this story of resignation to the drama and the tragedy of raising chickens, and that this is just the way it's going to be. You just have to get used to watching animals die. To this empowerment and joy and love of here's how you deal with it, and this is their cycle of life. And she's like, everything needs to rest, so they're going to stop laying eggs at a certain time of the year, and that's what they need. They're going to lose their feathers and look ugly for a few weeks a year. That's what they need, and they look beautiful when it grows back. And it was just so eye-opening, because actually yesterday I had this moment where I had a tiny sliver of realization that, maybe I'm making this all up about the feathers being this big disease and tragedy, because how do I not know that this means she's recovering from something, or about to, this is the beginning of new growth, and she had to let go of these feathers to get rid of whatever was there, which I assumed was some kind of infestation. But I never considered the possibility that this loss was an absolutely natural and necessary part of her life and growth cycle. So this goes back to the Live Your Medicine, Find Your Unique Voice story in the following way. One is to ask, are you suffering alone? And we so often don't even realize that we are, because we just hold it so silently in the shame box and hold on to our fundamental belief that we're not good enough at whatever it is, and that we have to figure out how to do it better on our own, through our own research or our own betterment of ourselves. So if we notice that we're suffering alone, can we open to the idea that maybe there's a community out there that has dealt with this before and can see it in a new way. And this is what I envision for Live Your Medicine. Starting with doctors, where it's literally living your medicine, but really moving beyond into when you live what heals you. When you live directly in your own experience of suffering and emergence from suffering, you discover and become that which heals the world around you. So it doesn't start with out there, trying to find the problems to solve that are out there, or trying to help other people. But it emerges from really living your own healing journey, discovering what your medicine is for you. And in that beautiful process of noticing when you are thinking you're alone, noticing when you're labeling yourself as not good enough, and then in the process of living through that, getting to a point where you finally open to, wow, there's got to be another way to see this or experience this, and there's got to be a bigger opening that's coming my way as a result of walking through this particular feeling of blah. So my lesson from the chickens, and here's a shot of them because they're so happy right now. There they are. My lesson from the chickens is that you don't need to believe the story, that it just has to be crappy and you have to put up with the drama and the loss just continuing as that's just the way it is. You don't have to buy that story. You can believe it for a while and feel how it feels and experience it. There's nothing wrong with walking through that. But notice that there's a transformation that's awaiting, and that there's a natural process where we might look ugly for a while. We might have to go through some loss, but there is a natural regenerative cycle at play. So if we learn to be with our experiences, really staying with them, but not identifying with them and massaging them to the point where these stories are the only possibility that we envision for ourselves. But if we just stay and experience and be in the story of our lives, there's so much beauty and magic that will emerge from our own healing, transformation, and creativity. Thank you, chickens, and thank you, community, and enjoy this day.